welcome. In this video I'm going to show you how you can use animation nodes instead of particle systems to get some random distribution of objects, and we're going to create something like this. If you're new to animation nodes, I have a tutorial series here for free on YouTube called an Introduction to Animation Nodes, and like I said, it's for beginners. So if you want to dive into animation nodes, which is a very cool and free add-on for Blender, which is also free, then go check that out. So here I am in Blender. This is a 2.91, still in alpha at the time of this recording. Now let's see what we want to do. I'm gonna start with a simple plane. Let me also switch on screencast key so you can see what I'm doing down here. I'm gonna go into edit mode and subdivide this 10 times so we have a little bit of geometry, because this is our cloth object. So right away we can go to the physics over here, enable cloth, and we're done. So this is our cloth, and it just falls down when I hit play. Now for this random distribution, you might think, okay, easy. All we need is a cube, scale it up, and then go over here, create a new particle system, emit all the particles on frame 1. Let's do 50. And the source is going to be the volume, so that we're filling this cube inside with randomly distributed particles. Then over here on viewport display, I'm gonna switch off show emitter so we can actually see our particles. And instead of these dots, these halos, I want to render an object. And which one? Of course, I want to render my plane, and I have to set the scale to 1 or something similar. Okay, so we have these planes randomly distributed. Each plane is a cloth simulation. Now this looks weird. I'm gonna also enable rotation, randomize the rotation so we get something like this. Maybe scale it down a little more. Okay, I'm also going to hide my original plane. So now we have this. We can go up here and play with the seed value so we get a nice starting distribution here. Usually you get something overlapping. Maybe we can scale it up a little more, click around here some more, whatever. So you get the point. We have a starting point where we can start with all sorts of 50 different individual cloth sims. And what happens if I hit play now? They all fall down. So let's make this a little bit more interesting. Let's add like a turbulence, set that to strength 10, flow 10, size 1, give it some random noise. Also add a force wind. Okay, maybe put it down here, strength 100, flow 10, noise amount. Let's see what that looks like. So the wind is blowing everything upwards. Maybe turn down the strength. Okay, so you can see, oh, my particles die too soon. Where's my cube particle system? Lifetime of particles, something high. Okay, so that don't just die off. Okay, so we can see we have this, but now let's look closer. You can kind of tell that like every single one of those looks the same, right? So we don't really have, we have different rotations, but we don't really get cloth sim for each individual cloth in this case. And that's because basically Blender is simulating the one cloth that we have, this plane object here. And then that is just being like instanced inside of our particles cube. So that's not what we want. What do we have to do to fix this? We have to go to our cube. And over here, we have the particle modifier in this case. And we actually have to convert the particle system to real objects. So I hit that convert button, and then I get 50 plane objects. And right away I can move them to a new collection so that I can easily select them all at once. Then I can just hide my cube and maybe even completely disable it from the simulation so that we don't get the particle system anymore. We have all these pieces of individual cloths now. And if I hit play now, oh, now the physics have changed a little because now we have actual individual objects. So let's play with the strength of the wind here. Turn that up to 150. This is not enough. Where's my wind? Wind is here. Okay, turbulence. Let's get something that looks interesting. They're all falling down. You know what? I'm just gonna switch off gravity maybe. So now we get this. And you can see now we have individual cloth sims. So each one is now being simulated with the wind and the turbulence. And now you can see this looks right. So this one looks completely different. And then that one and looks different than this one. Right, so they behave correctly now. But what if I wanted to change that object now? Or if I wanted to change something on the cloth settings? I have 50 objects now. I have to go in and change all 50, each one separately. Also, how could I like randomize something in the cloth sim for each individual object? It's kind of not possible with the particle system as a starting point. So that's where we're going to switch over to animation nodes and replicate this setup in animation nodes, and then I'm going to show you where we can actually use it as a much more powerful tool to get some random distribution as a starting point. For that, I'm going to start with a completely new file. So, brand new file, completely blank, Shift A, mesh, plane, edit mode, subdivide 10 times, and we have our cloth just like before. Now we had that cube. Instead of that, I'm going to use animation nodes. So here I'm going to create a new node tree. And for this random distribution, just like with the particle system, I need some random positions in 3D space. And the random vector node is just that. So we can have a random vector node, and when we click here, we get a list of vectors. And we can define how many we want right here. So we used to have 50. Let's do 50. Object instancer. Enable those two because we want to keep the cloth sim. And speaking of that, I should go over here, and with my plane here, I should enable cloth sim. So now this is a cloth. And with these checkboxes enabled, we're actually copying the cloth sim or the cloth modifier. We want 50 instances of this plane, and then we have the 50 instances here right away. No need to convert the particle system to objects. Animation nodes always creates real objects. So that's that. So how many random vectors do we need? We can just drag this in here and we get a get length node. So now I have 50 random vectors. You can visualize that with a 3D viewer. Plug that in here. And these are your points. Let me make them bigger and red. So these are our 50 points. If we want them spread out more, that's what this scale value here does. So that would be as if we were scaling our domain cube for the particle system. Okay. So now we have random vectors in a cube. Maybe make it a lot bigger. Now we have to place our 50 planes that we already have in this animation nodes object container over here at those locations. So Shift A, I just realized that this is of course off again. So Shift A, object transform output. So we want to change the location of these 50 objects to these 50 locations. So we get this. Now they're all facing the same direction. In the particle system, we had that random rotation value, but in animation nodes, we can just create a random rotation. So we need, what do we need? We need rotation, a random Euler, which is a rotation value. Again, we need a list. How many? This many. And we want to plug that into our rotation over here. So let's enable that. Plug in 50 rotations, and now we have random rotation as well. Cool. So since I made the plane into a cloth sim and I'm duplicating that 50 times, all of these are already cloth sims. Now, again, let's add like a force field. Turbulence, set that to 10, 1, something like this, with a high noise amount. Let's see what that does. They're all falling down. Okay. But maybe you can already tell that each one is its own individual object, just like what we got after converting the particle system into individual objects. So we don't have to convert anything here. And each one is being simulated in a cloth sim, in its own little cloth sim. Now maybe just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to switch off gravity here. So what do we get here? Nothing really. I think my turbulence is not strong enough. Where is it? 200. Let's see. So here we go. Cool. Also, I'm gonna add a force field wind again. Maybe put it over here like that. Strength 50. Let's see. But okay, now the wind is blowing upwards. Noise amount. Okay. So we get 50 individually simulated cloth sims. And now this is where the magic happens. What if I want to go in and make 50 pillows instead of 50 just infinitely flat pieces of cloth? Well, let me just hide this for a second. Go to my plane, go to frame 1, go into edit mode, extrude it up on the C, give it a little bit of thickness, select all, and maybe recalculate the normals on the outside just to be sure that we have, correct geometry. So now I have a pillow, and in my cloth over here, I'm gonna enable pressure and give it like a pressure of 1. So when I hit play now, I get a pillow, okay? And of course the wind is moving the pillow and the turbulence and everything. So I have a pillow. I'm also going to shade it smooth. I just changed the one object, and I'm gonna re-enable my animation nodes container over here. We still have these 50 planes in here from before, from this object instancer. So in order to really just delete all of that and make Blender forget about it, really the easiest way is to go in here and say I want 0 instances. Now this collection is empty. It's all completely gone. And then we just create 50 new instances, and now we have 50 pillows. And this is really the point that I'm trying to make here, that is like very hard to do with using the particle system for the random distribution to start with. Okay, so now I have 50 pillows, and if I hit play, I mean, of course, I only get 9 frames per second here, but we have 50 pillows. Now we can see that they're kind of intersecting because they don't have collision enabled. Now imagine what you have to do with the particle system method. You have to like delete everything, go back in, then convert everything again. All I have to do is delete my 50 pillows by creating 0 instances. Then go to my start plane here, this guy, my pillow, enable collision, and I'm done. Now I want 50 of those. And I have 50 pillows with cloth, with collision, with pressure. Okay, let's see if it works. Now it's really slow. Wow. But believe me, it works. Each one of those now, since they're all really individual objects, real objects with real collision and cloth, you can see they all have the collision enabled here. Okay. And now as a bonus, we can even go a step further. So let's go back to frame 1. And my plane up here, this guy, has this pressure value here. And I set that to 1. So all of these objects now have a pressure value of 1. But we can randomize this value using animation nodes. And this is really something that you would have to do it manually with the other method. And here with animation nodes, it's like super easy. So first of all, let's get rid of our pillows and let's set up the node tree here to make this happen. So what do we need? We need to change this pressure value here and we have to randomize it. So we need random numbers, a random number for the pressure value. We can use a number random node, again enable this little guy here to get a list of numbers. We again want this many numbers, right? And then we have to set this value. And I've shown this before in other animation nodes tutorials. You can set an attribute with the Shift A object attribute output node. So over here we have our 50 objects. We plug those in here, which turns this into this kind of node where we can say, yep, we have multiple values. We want to plug in multiple values in here. And we have to give this node here the path, the data path to this value here. And that's very easy. You just go over here, right click, copy data path, and then Control V that in here. So this is the data path in Blender for this value. Now we're assigning our 50 random values to this pressure value. And we can say, okay, the lowest pressure we want of the whole random spectrum here is maybe 0.3 and the maximum is 3. Let's do that. Okay, and now we create 50 objects again, 50 pillows. And as soon as I hit play, oh, you know what? I'm also going back in and disabling collision because that takes way too long. So on the plane here, disable collision, and maybe I'm just going to do 25 now, just so that we can see what's happening. Now look at this. Let me pause this. See, this one is rather flat, doesn't have much pressure inside. This one has a lot more pressure inside. So now we randomized, of course, we don't have collision now, but we randomized the pressure, and this one has like almost none. Okay. Now, like I said, try to do that with the particle system as a starting point for random locations. It's kind of a lot of work to manually assign random pressure values. But with animation nodes, this is super easy. And then you add some lights, maybe a camera move, play with the turbulence, the wind, whatever physics settings you want, and then you can render out something like this. And I'm sure you can come up with something else that looks really cool. And if you do, don't forget to tag me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Check out the other animation nodes and physics and whatever tutorials here on my channel. Like I said before, if you're interested in animation nodes and have no idea what the hell is happening, I have a beginner's tutorial series here on my channel. It's all free. The blend file of this tutorial and many other blend files of other tutorials can be downloaded over at my Patreon page for just $2 a month. Thanks to all the patrons who support this channel. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. That's it for today. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for watching. Chris P out.